Hello, welcome to lesson 7-5, dividing a whole number by a decimal. And our learning goal will be to divide whole numbers by decimals. A number divided by a decimal can be represented as an equivalent calculation using place value to change the divisor to a whole number. And in our first example, we're going to talk through how this works, how we can represent decimals as equivalents in order to make a division problem a little bit easier to solve. Please make sure you've written down both learning goals, press pause if you need to, and press play when you're ready to look at the example. Okay, so let's think of an example problem. Let's look at 132 divided by 1 65 hundredths. Okay? So if we look down, we could actually think about multiplying our numerator and the denominator both by 100. And the reason that we would do this is if we multiplied 1 65 hundredths by 100, then it would be changed to 165. So we would be able to work with a whole number. But if we do that, we also need to change 132 by multiplying it also times 100. So we would be changing 132 into 13,200, and we would be changing 1 65 hundredths into 165. And the reason this works is because we're making equivalent numbers by multiplying both the numerator and the denominator by 100. We're going to work through this together so that I can show you how we can do this just by moving the decimal point the same number of places in both the divisor and the dividend, which that signifies or shows the same thing as if we multiplied both of them by the same power of 10. In this example, we're multiplying both of them times 100. So the reason we do this is so that we can work out a division problem when we have a decimal in the divisor. So let's take a moment and look at this together so you can actually see what it looks like. So let's take our number that we're going to start with, and it began as, if we were going to write it out, 1 65 hundredths. We're dividing that into 132. Now, we talked about if we multiplied this times 100, and let's just show that over here, 165, or 1 65 hundredths, we're going to multiply that times 100, and then we have to move our decimal place over 2 places, which we learned about in last topic. We would get 165. If we did the same thing with 132, we're going to multiply that times 100. We get 13,200. Now, I may not want to do this multiplication every time once I show you kind of how this works. We can also do this by saying we're going to move the decimal point 2 places. So 1 65 hundredths is going to become 165. If we move the decimal point 2 places in this number, we have to do the same thing with this one, both our dividend and our divisor. So 132, part of that disappeared. I'd have to move the decimal point 2 places this way, and sometimes I even draw those little bumps in, and then I know where to put my zeros. So now my problem would look like this. I'm going to rewrite it one more time down here. 165 is our divisor. So I'm dividing 13,200 by 165. Now I can do the multiplication or the division problem much more easily. So I'm just going to go through my regular steps of division: divide, multiply, subtract, bring down. 165 does not go into 1, so I can move on to the next. Some of us like to put a 0 here to hold our place, and I think I'll do that this first time. Okay. 165 will not go into 13. I can't divide. Make groups of 165 out of only 13 things. 165 will not go into 132. So I'm just going to do that to hold my place. But I can make groups of 165 out of 1,320. But I'm going to have to do a little math calculation over here to see how many times 165 will go into 1,320, because I'm just looking to this place value. And when I don't know about large numbers like this, sometimes I just go off to the side and I start with 5. And this would be 25. 6 times 5 is 30, plus 2 more would be 32. And then 5 times 1 is 5, plus 3 is 8. Well, that's not quite enough, is it? That only comes up to 825, and I know I can get closer than that. So then sometimes I go ahead and I might move up a couple more numbers. I'll do 165 times 7. That got me closer. So let's try 165 times 8. And that's what I want. 165 times 8 gives me 1,320. Now I subtract and bring down my 0. And I can finish the division problem. So the answer that we got for this was 80. Now that you kind of know how we can do this, we're going to do a few practice problems together. So for your first practice problem, we're going to divide 426 by 6/10. Remember, we're going to need to make that 6 into a whole number by moving the decimal point. If we move the decimal point a place in our divisor, we must also do the same thing in our dividend. Please try this one on your own. Whenever you finish the division problem, press play and we'll work it together. Did you write 721? Well, let's work this out. So our original problem would have been written as 6/10 is our divisor and 426. Okay, I'm going to have to move this one place here. I'm just going to rewrite it over here to make our divisor 6. And my decimal point is currently right here because this is the whole number 426. I'm going to move my decimal point back one place because I did the same thing here. And so now I'm going to have 4,260. Remember, by changing both of them, we're making equivalent divisors and dividends that we can work with. Now I can do my division. 6 will go into 42 7 times. I'm going to subtract and bring down my 6. 6 will go into 6 one time. I will subtract and bring down. And 6 will go into 0 times. Nice work if you got that. Let's go ahead and take a look at our next practice problem. We have 216 divided by 300ths. Please work the problem. Press play when you're ready to check it with me. Did you write 7,200? Well, let's take a look at our problem. Our original problem was 300ths is our divisor, and we're dividing that into 216. Okay, now we're going to have to move our decimal place 2 places to make our new divisor 3. And if I moved it 2 places here, I need to move it 2 places right here and put zeros to hold those place value spots. So now I have 26,600. I can divide 3 into 21 7 times. I'll subtract, bring down. 3 will go into 6 2 times. Oops, need to make that a 6. I would subtract, bring down my 0. Oops, that needs to be a 0 and a 0. 3 will go into 0 times. Bring down that final 0. 3 will go into 0, 0 times. And that's where I got 7,200 as my answer. Let's take a look at practice problem number 3. We have 2,800 divided by 7 hundredths. Please work the problem and press play whenever you're ready to work it with me. Did you write 40,000? Let's take a look. We had 7 hundredths to begin with, so that's going to become 7. And I moved that 2 place value spots. So then I'm going to have to take my 2,800 and move my decimal point 2 more spots. And now I can do my division. 7 will go into 28 4 times. I'm going to subtract and bring down. I'm going to keep doing this so I make sure I end up with the right number of zeros in my quotient. 7 times 0 is 0. I will subtract and bring down. 7 times 0 is 0. Going to subtract and bring down. 7 times 0 is 0. Going to subtract and bring down. And I'm doing all this because I want to make sure that I end up with the correct answer here and I don't have too few or too many zeros. And then remember, we can always check our work by multiplication. If I do 7 times 40,000, and I can do this kind of doing some mental multiplication that we learned a long time ago, and then I'm going to bring down all of those zeros. 1, 2, 3, 4. That gives me 280,000, and that's what I had to start with. So I know my answer is correct when I got 40,000. Okay, let's take a look at our practice word problem. A CD has 80 minutes of space available on it. A band was deciding how many songs could fit on a CD. They bought blank CDs for recording their songs. If their average song is 3 2/10 minutes long, how many songs can they fit on each CD? Please work the problem and press play when you're ready to check. Did you write 25 songs? Let's take a look at that. Okay, so we had 3 2/10 was how long each song was, and the amount of space that we had was 80. So we're going to have to move that over 1 place to make this 32. And then we're going to have to move our decimal point over 1 place to make our 80 into 800. Now when we multiply, 32 will go into 8 0 times, but 32 will go into 80 2 times. 32 times 2 is 64. Bring down my 0. 32 will go into 160 5 times with no remainder left over. So 25 songs would fit on the CD. Okay, challenge yourself. In 1927, Charles Lindbergh made the first solo nonstop flight 3,610 miles across the Atlantic Ocean. The flight lasted 33 5/10 hours. About how many miles per hour did he fly? Round your answer to the nearest whole number. Show all your work in your journal, explain your answer, and come back to school ready to check your answer. So let's finish up. Review your learning goals. Have you mastered them all? Do you need to go back and review and practice again? In your journal, please write down 1 or more questions you still may have from this lesson. If you don't have any questions, don't write anything down. Dividing a whole number by a decimal rocks. You have completed lesson 7-5, dividing a whole number by a decimal. See you tomorrow with your work done and ready to learn.